Rolling. Again, not a whole lot to be said from, Saturday's football game, and probably a lot to be said about what's going on this weekend. A huge challenge for our football team, a really good Kansas State team, a team that's playing with a lot of confidence, a team that's led by some dynamic players, and obviously I've talked a lot about the culture and tradition of that football program. And so, a great challenge for us. I know we really look forward to getting back on the football field today and kind of getting to work for Kansas State. So with that said, any questions you guys have for me, I'll certainly answer them.
Yeah, the fourth quarter has been really big for you guys. What's allowed you to have so much success and typically finish so well?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't know if it's one of those things statistically that, is team driven, or if it's just one of those things this year where we've been able to do a really good job making adjustments in the game. And by the time getting to the fourth quarter, we've been able to play some of our best football. I think the one thing it certainly says about the fight of our football team is that we'll continue to play. And, playing hard for 4 quarters has become the standard of this program, and I think our kids have done a great job of that. And so it's certainly at least given us the ability to play well in the fourth quarter. And then I do think this is a team, defensively, it is veteran in every way, and I think the ability to make adjustments throughout the game, we've been able to do that well. And I think, a young offensive team growing up through in the season, and certainly credit to Brock, is our ability to make adjustments schematically within the game to hopefully put ourselves in the best situation in the fourth quarter. I think probably all that has to do, with maybe that statistic of our team playing good in the fourth quarter.
When you think about that, what are some of the biggest changes that have had the biggest impacts that you guys have made late in games?
Yeah, I think it's our ability to communicate amongst a staff where we say, here's what's going to give us the best chance to win the game, and then getting that information relayed to our players, I think really important for our football team, and then our players having enough understanding of what we're trying to do to go win the game. And I think all those things kind of come into play. But I think some of those conversations, and you've seen us change the rhythm of the game a lot. In some of these games, you go back to Oklahoma, and all of a sudden it's a different pace and a different tempo. And you can go back to last week, a different tempo and a different pace. So I think there's just times where we've had to really do what's best for this team, and maybe not what's maybe best for us statistically, to try to help us go win the football game.
Last 2 years, you've had some memorable games against K-State. One didn't go your way there, and then last year, that big comeback. What is it about this matchup that maybe you two mirror one another in program?
Yeah, I think from, the standard of the Big 12 of, playing hard and playing with precision and detail, so much of what Coach Snyder had built for so long at Iowa State, or at Kansas State, has been so well respected from my end of it, that I think those fabrics are things that you hope to implement in this program. And the consistency, playing hard, understanding winning in the margin is really important. And so I think those are things that I'm sure have been talked about for a long time, and again, obviously being emphasized now with their new staff, a staff that comes in and's got championship culture from what they've done in North Dakota State. And so I think those are the things that maybe are on parallel of winning in those margins, and how critical that really is to be successful. I think both teams and certainly programs, at least the last year or two, have tried to really work hard to live by that.
Kane probably had his best game of the year on Saturday when it came to returning kicks. What's kind of the read for him in those scenarios when he catches a ball, whether or not he fair catches or does decide to return?
Yeah, I think every game it's a little bit different, based on wind, based on, schematically what the kickoff team is doing. I think one of the things that we can't underestimate is the value of getting the ball on the 25-yard line, and I think one of the things that probably my growth has been understanding that, and so I think the thing for us is we think Kane is outstanding, and think he's one of the best kickoff return guys in the country. But putting him in the best position to be successful, and you got to remember with those kickoff returns, sometimes where the position that ball goes can really hinder the blocks. Even though you think you got a great block, where that ball goes, it might not be the best block for that return. And so I think all those things kind of go into where and when do we want to return the football, what situation's best for him. But I really do. I thought Kinney's returns in the game last week was absolutely critical. And the one big one, I really felt like it turned the tide back in our favor. And gave us great momentum and almost put us in 4-down territory right away from an offensive mindset. I thought that was really big for this football team.
Maybe an awkward time of year where this is the last time you get to see your team in game action for nearly a month, maybe more. What do you feel you need to see out of your team this weekend to make you feel good about not being able to play a game for the next month and a half?
Well, I think the thing that's been really fun for us and what we've done in this program is we're not chasing anything else but ourselves. And I think the thing that it's been really rewarding to watch this football team and continue to grow is, how do we continue to become the best version of Iowa State? And I said this after the game on Saturday, we still have not played 4 quarters of our best football. And what an unbelievable opportunity again to be able to go do that, because the reality of it is you don't do it this week. It's going to be a really tough challenge to be successful. So, I think seeing our best with great consistency, and it's really hard to do at the end of the football season because, teams are worn down and you can have every excuse why not to do it. Or you got a pretty special team that's got the ability to do it. And so, I think this team, the leadership of this team certainly understands what that next step maybe looks like and feels like.
Coach, you concerned about your defense at all? Did you not like what you saw last Saturday? And what are you working on that side of the ball moving into K-State?
No, not really. We're banged up in some ways. We got a bunch of guys kind of fighting through. We played great defense all year, and I think again they did some great things matchup wise to give themselves some advantages. And I thought we made some good adjustments when we needed to. I think you go back to that game, if you don't have those 3 stops in the first half in the red zone, and instead of touchdowns, they're field goals, and then obviously the big stop at the end of the football game was huge. I thought we played good team football enough to win the football game last week. So now we'll just keep plugging away on that side of the ball for sure.
Coach, can you just comment on your appreciation for Steve Wirtel and what he brings to the program?
Yeah. Steve has kind of been, for the last 4 years here, really a pillar in 2 ways. Number one, I really do think he's the best long snapper in the country. His ability to cover, his ability to block and protect, the unique things that we do with him in both areas, I think has been a huge advantage for our special teams play. And then you talk about the leader that he is off the field for our football team. Steve's one of those guys that's, he's just got this unbelievable leadership trait, who he is, what he stands for. And I said last week to our team, I think one of the great things about Steve is he's shown us what greatness looks like. I think that when you want to be great at something and you want to attack a skill, you're willing to strain to constantly get better, and that's what Steve's done. And what that's allowed him to do is become the best in the country at what he does. So we're really proud of Steve and know that he's been an anchor for our success in this program.
I think yesterday the Athletic put out a thing where they went through some of the biggest changes in college football over the last decade and did an all-decade team and stuff like that. You've been head coach in college football for about that long. What are some of the things that you think you've seen change the most in that 10-year span?
Yeah, I think the biggest change that's happened, probably more than anything, is defensive football catching up to the spread offense over the last 10 years. And I think what I remember coming into coaching, and when I was on a defensive player playing against offenses, and you're playing against the I formation, you're playing against pro style West Coast offense, and then I got to Bowling Green. It's like, man, there's no tight ends, and they're spreading the ball out, and they got all these crazy protections and formations, and and then everybody was doing it, and now everywhere you go, everybody's doing it. And I think what's happened is you've seen all these really seen all these defenses have the ability to catch up. And I said people used to play defense from the inside out. Well, I think now you see a lot of teams play defense from the outside in. And so I think that's probably been the greatest change in college football over the last 10 years. And obviously with that evolution, it'll be interesting to see how the teams continue to adapt what now happens to offensive football. But I think that's probably been the biggest thing in the last 10 years that's really evolved greatly.
You've got a chance to win 8 regular season games for the consecutive years, been done one time in the history of this school. I mean, how important are those milestones to you in building things?
Yeah, I don't really look at how important those things are to us, rather, other than, I think for me, you look at this team and this culture and you say, you can reflect back to where we were 3 years ago. And, you know, I think the belief that really didn't exist in these walls, and now to sit and watch our kids believe and be pained when we're not playing at our best, and straining right now culturally in every way, shape, or form to become the best version of us. And I've always said this, the winning and losing, it does take care of itself in a lot of ways. And, you know, I think one of the things that it's been really fun to watch is us just continue to pound away of how do we win here at Iowa State? How do we become successful? And how do we sustain that success? Are we there yet? You know, no. Are we getting a lot closer to where we want to be? I think you see it and you feel it. Even this season, I think this has been a season that we have grown immensely. And I said before the season started, there was more changes that happened in the last 6 months in the cultural aspect of our walls than I've ever been around. And I think you've seen that in how we've had the ability to respond to some successes, and to be honest with you, how to respond to some tough situations and play consistent football quarter to quarter. And I think that those are areas that there's been a lot of growth, and I take a lot of pride in that. So I think to me, that's way more important to say, what's that record, what's the scoreboard tell you? You know, what do you really see in how your approach and discipline and all the little things that go on in a football program really look and feel.
You talked about Anthony Johnson after the game and said that he was doing a few things that corners hadn't done for you guys all year. What does he do specifically that sets him apart, and the maturity, I guess, that he's been able to exemplify?
Yeah, I think again, here's a young guy. You know, he came into the season as a true sophomore, and a guy that's still growing. And where I take most pride for him is that he's playing his football this late in the season. His growth has come through the season, which tells me, number one, his process of how he goes about his work, his ability to understand what he maybe hasn't done really well early in the season and where he's grown immensely from those areas, and then the confidence that he's really built in himself. And I think at corner, probably one of the hardest positions in college football to play today. It's not easy. You know, you can be in perfect position and it might not go well, and then you have to have a really short memory to come back and play well. And I think what you've seen from Anthony, he's been really physical in the run game. You see him breaking on balls and competing with some of the best receivers in our conference right now. And you see him playing with a lot of confidence. And so I think his process to get here has been really rewarding and really mature for a young guy to be able to be at this point, at this stage of his career. You know, we've been blessed to have a Brian Peavy who, you know, was playing like that as a junior, late in his junior year and obviously his senior year. But to have a guy like this at such a young age playing, it's really fun to watch, and I think it tells you a lot about what his God-given ability is and certainly what his potential really looks like, and he's starting to live that potential right now.
You know, you got asked a little bit about this last week, but Julian Good-Jones is going to break the consecutive starts record. Just what are the challenges that come with doing that when you're an offensive lineman that's played for as long as he has?
Yeah, you know, and I said this last week a little bit, Tommy. I think one of the challenges is, you know, from a health standpoint, you know, offensive line is not a lot of people grow up and want to play on the offensive line, right? We want to catch it, throw it, run it, tackle it, but very few want to actually put their hand in the dirt and become, it's a learned skill, it's a learned craft, and the physicality that comes with it is, it's not for the timid and weak. And, you know, I would say what Julian has done with his body physically maturing, it's allowed him to stay healthy. It's allowed him to really grow. And, you know, I think the other part of it is mastering multiple positions takes a really intelligent young man to have the ability to do what he's done, you know, starting at center, starting at guard, and now the last 2 years at tackle. You have to have a great sense of intelligence to be able to do that. And so, you know, I think those two pillars for him, you know, a little bit of obviously luck staying healthy, but I think that's a lot of credit to him and the work he's done in the offseason to get his body where it needs to be. And then certainly that football intelligence, his ability to work at it, to really understand the game and put himself in such a great position to get on the field and help this team be successful.
I think after this week, just because of the way the calendar works out, there's only 2 full weeks before the early signing period starts. third Wednesday, I guess, in December. How do you guys envision kind of working through that quick turnaround? I think it's usually been 3 full weekends leading up to that.
And last year we kind of got, I guess, probably a briefing of that, because if you remember, the Dre game was a week later, and so we kind of fell on the same timeline a year ago, and so it makes it a little bit tighter, and for our coaches is probably my greatest concern, just because the reality of it is a long football season. You'll be preparing for a game soon enough. But I think we'll attack it like we normally have, where we're going to go out and do everything in our power to make sure, the young men that have said they're coming to Iowa State, we can do a great job of finishing this class off, which we're really excited about. And then, obviously, as soon as we will find out about what our next opportunity would be after that, it is kind of getting to work there. So kind of balancing both of those things with our football team in general. Exams are a week later this year anyways, so I kind of think it matches probably our calendar and our schedule the best it has. So we'll have to do a really good job of managing both our players and our coaches from my standpoint.
As good as Charlie's been this season, was there any surprise he wasn't named one of the 3 finalists for the Mackey Award?
Well, I heard that yesterday, and so, I would say disappointing, because you probably can put all the stats of the guys that are up for that award and won, and I don't know if they collectively match Charlie. So I really don't know how you select those, but it's too bad. But the reality of it is, we think the best tight end in the country resides right here in Ames, Iowa, and you know what? I think Charlie would take Coach Campbell's blessing than he would some voter.
And on that note, I know we talk a lot about Charlie, but his brother John, what's he like? And do you think his presence being around the team has maybe helped Charlie in a capacity this season?
Yeah, and I think Charlie would tell you yes. John is one of those guys where it's been really rewarding to have John come here. John got some great experiences at Oklahoma State. You're talking a program kind of a lot like I said about Kansas State, where they have won sustained success, have had great moments, and John has been able to be in those meetings and been around that culture and that program. And certainly you just talked about the quarterback room, and the successes that have come out of that room have been outstanding. And so, I think what John's brought is a sense of veteranness, a sense of understanding. And, obviously John and Charlie have a great relationship. So I think anytime you have somebody that your brother's here who's older than you and can continue to give you great wisdom, and not over the phone, but I think right there immediately, I think that's big. And I know those two got a great relationship. I've talked so much about their family, an amazing family, 2 unbelievable parents who have raised great children. And so I think the great thing for us is our program has benefited greatly from the Kolars being here, and certainly John has been a great addition.
Coach, look at the offensive numbers, best in school history right now. Can you look at maybe, I don't know, what kind of reasons there are for that, maybe different plays that you're running, or coming into the season, did you make any adjustments, or how would you explain just all the crazy numbers you're putting up?
Brock Purdy, that's probably how I'd explain it. Really, I think just for us, the evolution of a quarterback. And so, he's a guy that's really grown, and Coach Manning gave a lot of credit to that offensive staff. I said this before, it's great to have Coach Manning back, but to be honest with you, it was really great to have Joe Gordon, Nate Shieldhouse, and Jeff Myers, and guys that took on a huge role a year ago and I think really grew. And our dynamic coaches, Alex Golish, continues to do an incredible job in the development of those guys. So I think that staff, comparable to the emergence of some of these really talented young guys, a really young offensive group starting the season, and you lose 2 pillars of this program, and David Montgomery and Hakeem Butler. And I said I think one of the positives is when guys like that leave, some other guys get opportunities, and in really good programs, those guys take advantage of their opportunities. And I think a lot of credit to their development, those players' development, and great to have a veteran quarterback that can use those guys and understand where the football needs to go schematically. That really helps, I think, progress happen. And Brock certainly progressed greatly from his freshman year to his sophomore year.
Coach Kleiman obviously had a very difficult task in going into Manhattan to replace Coach Snyder. How have you seen him kind of carry some of those things over, and can you imagine stepping into some shoes like that, I guess?
I don't think you're always in 2 areas when you have to replace a legend like Coach Snyder is number one, obviously what he's done for so long in one place. is certainly it's powerful. And what I would say the positive about stepping into that is you're inheriting an unbelievable culture. The kids' understanding of what work ethic and toughness and hard work and how to win, what it looks like and feels like, you inherit that. And I think what Coach Clemens brought is he's brought this. He knows obviously how to win, and I think he understands culture because he's lived it and breathed it. And, probably one of the great hires in college football that would allow a transition as smoothly to take over as what they've done at Kansas State. So I think it just was a perfect match. When you watch Kansas State play on film, it's almost verbatim of what you've seen for the last 10 years. They're physical and tough on the offensive side of the football. They don't beat themselves. Defensively, they play as hard as anybody for 4 quarters and run the football. And on special teams, they do a great job taking advantage of situations to put themselves in the best situation to be successful. So, I think probably a great fit and a great match, and you've seen it only just continue to stay at the level of excellence and continue to rise as, probably what everybody thought would happen there.
All right, Coach, thank you.